When you picture cowboys making a living in the Old West, what's the first scene that springs to mind? Dusty paths, mooing herds, and months-long treks to far-off rail depots? Well, friend, that classic vision captures just one part of a much larger tale. The cowboys' earnings came from far more inventive sources than Hollywood might suggest. From card tables to land claims, the American cowboy was nothing if not adaptable. Let's start with what most folks think they know, the cattle drive. It's 1871, and the first golden light of dawn spills across the Texas plains. 25-year-old cowboy Elias Boone wipes sleep from his eyes, watching thousands of longhorn cattle shift in the morning glow. He's 2 weeks into a punishing 3-month haul from South Texas to the rail hub in Abilene, Kansas, where buyers will pay premium prices for these tough Texas steers. The trail boss yells over the morning fire. $1.30 a month, lads. That's what keeps your saddles on these Mustangs and your bellies full of beans. $30 a month, roughly $900 today, was a typical pay for cowboys during the peak of cattle drives from 1866 to 1886. Not a windfall, but for young men with few options after the Civil War, it was a chance. What many overlook is how intense and short-lived this work truly was. These weren't year-long jobs. A cowboy might spend only 3 to 4 months on drives, leaving them hunting for income the rest of the year. The renowned Western Trail from San Antonio to Dodge City could take 25 to 35 days in fair weather, closer to 60 in rough conditions. Even with multiple drives, a cowboy still needed other work to get by. The pay wasn't easily earned, either. Each dawn brought a dozen ways to perish. Stampedes could erupt from something as minor as a thunderstorm or a cowboy striking a match at the wrong time. When thousands of half-wild longhorns charged in panic, being crushed was a real danger. River crossings took countless lives, both animal and human. The Red River and the Brazos were especially hazardous, with quicksand shores and unpredictable currents. Consider the tale of Juan Morales, a Mexican vaquero on the Chisholm Trail in 1869. During a crossing of the swollen Red River, he lost his horse to the torrent. Instead of quitting the drive, he borrowed another mount and pressed on. His monthly wage was cut for the lost horse, and by the time he reached Abilene, he'd earned just $18 for 6 weeks of grueling labor. Weather dealt its own harsh blows. Freezing spring rains could drench a cowboy for days. Summer heat on the open plains scorched men in their saddles, and during night watch, typically 2 hours on for off round the clock, a cowboy might endure both extremes in a single day. The food was repetitive at best: beans, coffee, biscuits, and sometimes beef from cattle too weak to continue. The chuck wagon cook was often the oldest, most respected man on the drive, not only for feeding the crew, but for serving as the group's medic, dentist, and treasurer. When the rail hub finally appeared on the horizon, these men had earned every cent. The moment was bittersweet. Payday meant revelry in the cowtown's taverns and brothels, but many cowboys squandered 3 months' wages in 3 wild days. The cattle baron who owned the herd, meanwhile, could pocket $20 to $25 per head on a drive of 2,500 cattle, assuming losses of 200 to 300 animals. That meant profits of $50,000 or more. It's no surprise many cowboys dreamed of owning their own ranch. What ultimately ended this legendary trade wasn't bandits or Native American attacks, but something far more ordinary: barbed wire. As open range gave way to fenced plots in the 1880s, and railroads stretched deeper into cattle country, the need for long drives faded. The last major drives along the Western Trail happened around 1886, forcing cowboys to find new ways to use their hard-won skills. So, while cattle drives earned their place in Western legend, they were just one piece of the cowboys' financial story, romanticized over time into something far grander than the exhausting, temporary, perilous work they truly were. When the dust of the cattle drive cleared, most cowboys didn't hang up their spurs for the year. They simply switched roles. Year-round ranch work, less celebrated but far more common, became their mainstay. Picture a crisp October morning in 1873 on the vast King Ranch in South Texas. With cattle drives done for the season, Frank Stanton, a veteran cowboy known for taming the wildest Mustangs, rises before dawn. His weathered hands pull on worn gloves as he braces for another 16-hour workday that pays about $1 daily, plus meals and lodging. Ranch work ain't glamorous, but it's reliable. Frank might have said, voicing the feelings of thousands of cowboys who found steady jobs on massive operations like the XIT Ranch in the Texas Panhandle, a colossal spread covering over 3 million acres and needing more than 150 full-time cowboys to manage its 250,000 cattle. These weren't temporary stints. They were careers demanding year-round dedication through scorching summers and freezing winters. The work was relentless and diverse. Spring brought the exhausting task of roundups and branding, with cowboys working from 4 a.m. until well after dark for weeks on end. On the Diamond Bar Ranch in Arizona Territory, cowboys branded up to 400 calves daily during peak season, each requiring several men to rope, wrestle, and mark with the ranch's emblem. Some meant fence repairs, a hated chore as cowboys dodged cactus and thorny brush to fix miles of boundary lines. One Wyoming cowhand's 1882 diary grumbled, "Another miserable day stringing wire. My hands bleed through my gloves. This ain't what I came for, but it pays." The threat of rustlers made security work critical. Cowboys often served as armed sentries, patrolling remote ranch sections where thieves might try to steal cattle. This was risky. Rustling could lead to hanging, making encounters potentially lethal. Tom Holt, before his infamous days as a hired gun, worked as a ranch hand for the Swan Landing Cattle Company in Wyoming, where his tracking skills helped protect the herd from both human and animal threats. Winter brought its own harsh trials. Cowboys broke ice on waterholes, hauled feed to snowbound cattle, and freed animals stuck in ravines or drifts. During the brutal winter of 1886 to 87, when temperatures dropped to 40 below zero across Montana Territory, cowboys from the DHS ranch worked tirelessly, often sleeping just 2 or 3 hours nightly to save cattle. Despite their efforts, some ranches lost up to 90% of their herds. Beyond ranch work, some cowboys used their riding and shooting skills in niche roles. The Overland Mail Company hired ex-cowboys to guard stagecoaches, offering high wages of $100 to $150 monthly for men willing to face bandits. Mining operations in places like Nevada's Comstock Lode hired cowboys to secure payroll deliveries. These jobs were prized for their pay, though they carried clear risks. Wyatt Ellison's lesser-known early career is a prime example. Before becoming a lawman, Ellison worked as a teamster and guard for freight wagons between rail hubs and frontier towns. In 1868, he earned $50 monthly protecting Union Pacific payrolls, nearly double a cowboy's wage. His riding skills and calm demeanor, sharpened during cowboying, made him ideal for this dangerous but rewarding work. Even on established ranches, specialized skills could boost a cowboy's value and pay. Horse wranglers who managed and trained the ranch's remuda of 50 to 100 horses might earn $5 to $10 more monthly than regular hands. Blacksmiths and those skilled in animal care earned similar bonuses. One valued role was the rep rider, seasoned cowboys who represented their ranch in multi-outfit roundups, ensuring no cattle with their brand were overlooked or misclaimed. Whether fixing fences under blazing sun, standing night watch in blizzards, or guarding assets with just a revolver and their wits, these year-round jobs were the true economic foundation of cowboy life, far from the romantic 3-month adventures glorified in dime novels and films. Now here's where cowboys got truly inventive with their futures. Imagine this: you spent years in the saddle choking on dust, dodging stampedes, sleeping on rocky ground. Your body aches, and you've got little to show for it, but scars and a few bucks saved. Then you hear about the Homestead Act of 1862. For just $18 in filing fees, less than a week's cowboy pay, you could claim 160 acres of land. A ranch? All you had to do was live on it for 5 years and improve it. For men who'd been herding other people's cattle on other people's land, this wasn't just a chance. It was a game changer. Take the story of James "Iron Hand" Travis. In 1874, after 8 tough years on Texas cattle drives, Travis filed a claim on a fertile plot in western Nebraska. Locals smirked when they saw him, a 30-year-old cowboy with a mangled right hand from a roping mishap, trying to become a farmer rancher. What's a broken cowhand going to do with good bottomland, they scoffed. 5 years later, Travis's homestead had 40 head of cattle, a solid 2-room cabin, and the start of what would become one of the area's top apple orchards. The genius of homesteading for cowboys was that they already knew the essentials: cattle, horses, water sources, and the harsh realities of frontier life. What they lacked in farming know-how, they made up for in practical survival skills. When Teddy Blaine Abbott claimed land along Montana's Musselshell River in the 1880s, he already knew which grasses would fatten cattle quickest and where to sink his well for the best water. He'd learned these the hard way, working for other men's brands. The shift wasn't always easy. Cowboys turned homesteaders faced grueling tasks like building cabins, digging wells, and plowing fields, work many had never done. Many claims failed. The brutal winter of 1885-86 destroyed countless new ranches across the Dakota Territory. Jack Ferris, a former Texas cowboy who'd started a promising homestead near modern-day Sundance, Wyoming, lost everything in that storm. Yet instead of returning to wage work, Ferris filed a new claim farther south and began again. By 1900, his second effort had grown into a thriving 640-acre ranch, combining his original homestead with nearby claims bought from discouraged neighbors. Women were vital to these successes. Many cowboys deliberately courted school teachers, widows, or women with farming experience who brought complementary skills to the homesteading partnership. When former trail driver William Carter married Sarah Emerson, a widowed Kansas farm woman, in 1877, their combined expertise turned the modest Nebraska homestead into a prosperous mixed operation. Sarah's vegetable garden and poultry provided immediate food and income, while William's cattle herd grew steadily. The Homestead Act wasn't the only land opportunity cowboys pursued. The Timber Culture Act of 1873 offered extra acres to settlers who planted trees, and the Desert Land Act of 1877 provided 640 acres in dry regions if the claimant irrigated part of it. Clever cowboys often combined these programs, building substantial holdings. Ex-cowhand Daniel Harper used all three acts to assemble a 1,200-acre ranch in eastern Colorado by 1890. Starting with just a saddle and a decade of cowboying knowledge, Harper died a wealthy landowner whose children went to college, a path unimaginable for most cowboys. Not all claims succeeded conventionally. In the contested ranges of Wyoming and Montana, where cattle barons fought to keep control, cowboys sometimes filed strategic claims around water sources, then sold these key parcels to their employers for tidy profits or ranch partnerships. Former cowboy-turned-homesteader Tom Dalton turned his 160-acre claim, controlling 3 miles of creek frontage, into a partial ownership stake in the ranch that once employed him. Perhaps most striking about this shift from wage worker to landowner was how quickly it could happen. A cowboy who filed a claim in 1870 might be running his own modest herd by 1875. The same man driving another's cattle up the Western Trail could, within half a decade, be building wealth for himself and his descendants. This journey from worker to owner embodied the ultimate American opportunity, turning countless saddle-weary cowboys into respected ranchers, reshaping not just their economic status but the social landscape of the growing West. When cattle season ended and winter winds swept the plains, many cowboys swapped their ropes for playing cards and their saddles for bar stools. The saloons of frontier towns like Deadwood, Tombstone, and Dodge City became winter havens for cowboys with restless hands and money to risk or grow. Imagine it's December 1878 in Fort Griffin, Texas. The cattle are sold, the drives are over, and cowboy Jesse Thornton sits at a weathered wooden table, hat tilted low, eyeing his cards and the men around him. 6 months of hard-earned wages hinge on the next card. Farrell got me through 3 winters when cattle prices tanked, wrote ex-cowboy M. Keller in his little-known 1913 memoir. I'd rather face a stampede than some of those card sharks, but a man's gotta eat. Keller wasn't alone. In the seasonal rhythm of cowboy life, gambling wasn't just fun. It was an alternative economy where skilled players could double their yearly earnings during the off-season. The best might make more at the tables than they ever did in the saddle. Saloons also offered jobs. Cowboys good at handling trouble often worked as bouncers or security. At the famous Long Branch Saloon in Dodge City, former trail driver Mike Callahan earned $2 a day plus free lodging for keeping the peace, matching cowboy wages but with a roof overhead and no risk of being trampled by longhorns. His knowledge of trail hands, moods, and habits made him adept at calming tensions before they turned deadly. Behind the bar, cowboys with sharp memories and quick hands could earn even more. Bartending at the Oriental Saloon in Tombstone paid up to $5 daily, far outpacing cowboy wages. The famed Wyatt Ellison took a stake in the Oriental's gambling operations after his cowboying and lawman days, knowing that faro and poker parted cowboys from their money far faster than hard work ever could. For the musically gifted, entertainment offered another path. Though rarely noted in Western lore, Many outfits had a cowboy who could play the fiddle, guitar, or harmonica. These skills, refined around campfires on cattle drives, turned into paying gigs in frontier saloons. Sam Hawkins, who rode for the renowned J.A. Ranch in the Texas Panhandle, spent winters playing fiddle at Buffalo Bill's Hotel in North Platte, Nebraska. His earnings there topped his cowboy wages while posing far less physical danger. Gambling was a complex economy with its own pecking order. At the bottom were shady money dealers in mining camps and trail towns, fleecing newcomers with sleight of hand and rigged decks. Above them were honest gamblers who relied on skill, odds, and reading people rather than cheating. At the top were professionals like Bat Masterson, who turned his insight into human behavior from his buffalo hunting and lawman days into a thriving gambling career. The games varied widely. While poker looms large in popular memory, faro was the real king of Western saloons. Bucking the tiger, playing against the faro dealer or tiger, was seen as the fastest way to double your money or lose it all. Three-Carb Monte, Chuck-a-Luck, and Keno also parted cowboys from their cash, though most offered worse odds than faro or poker. For cowboys with a head for numbers, these games provided steady income through careful play and a solid grasp of probabilities. The geography of gambling traced the cattle trails. As railheads shifted west, gambling dens followed. Abilene gave way to Ellsworth, then Dodge City as the main cattle shipping points from Texas. Each spawned iconic saloons where cowboys might win or lose half a year's wages in one night. Even smaller cow towns like Laramie, Wyoming, or Miles City, Montana, had bustling gambling scenes during winter when ranch work slowed. Not all cowboys who entered this world came out whole. Some, like trail boss Dave Spence, lost years of savings in single catastrophic sessions. Others earned reputations as card sharks, men other gamblers steer clear of. A few, like Ben Thompson, became so skilled they left cowboying entirely for the more profitable trade of gambling. Thompson opened the notable Iron Front Saloon in Austin after years working cattle, showing how cowboys can move from wage workers to business owners through gambling savvy. For every success, though, a dozen cowboys headed back to spring roundup broke, but smarter, having learned that while cattle might trample you, at least they couldn't bluff. As one unnamed Cohan rode in the Drover's Cottage Register in Dodge City, came with $60 and a fine saddle, leaving with saddle only, will return next season to recoup or die trying. When cattle trails quieted and ranch work grew scarce, some cowboys turned their tracking skills and steady trigger fingers to a riskier but richer trade. Hunting wanted men. The blurry line between outlaw and lawman in the Old West wasn't just a phrase. It was a financial reality many cowboys navigated throughout their careers. Picture a snow-dusted morning in 1880 Wyoming Territory. Ex-cowboy Levi Carson adjusts his deputy marshal's badge, studies a wanted poster, and sets out on a trail gone cold to most, but not to a man who tracks stray cattle across vast, unmarked plains. The same eyes that can pick out one steer's tracks among thousands can find a man hiding, said Marcus Harding, who alternated between cowboying in Texas and chasing fugitives in Indian Territory during the 1870s. His bounty hunting brought in up to $200 per capture, worth nearly 6 months of cowboy wages. The math was straightforward, but the work was anything but. Tracking desperate men across brutal terrain meant risking ambush at every ridge and canyon. Few exemplified this shift better than famed lawman Bass Reeves. Though best known for his remarkable career as one of the first black deputy U.S. Marshals in Indian Territory, Reeves started as a cowhand in Texas. The tracking and survival skills he honed working cattle served him well when he took up a badge. Over his 32-year career as a deputy marshal, Reeves brought in over 3,000 criminals, earning hefty capture fees alongside his marshal salary. By retirement, this former cowboy had amassed enough wealth to buy significant land, a path from wage worker to property owner many cowboys coveted. The math of bounty hunting was enticing. In the 1870s and 1880s, rewards ranged from $50 for petty horse thieves to $500 or more for murderers and gang leaders. A skilled hunter bringing in 2 fugitives a month could out-earn a major ranch's foreman. These rewards were especially appealing after economic slumps like the Panic of 1873, when ranch jobs dried up and wages dropped. Ex-cowboys, with their mix of riding stamina, tracking prowess, and weapon skills, were prime candidates for frontier law enforcement. Not all stayed on the right side of the law. Some cowboys turned to banditry, while others walked the gray area as mercenaries or hired guns. The infamous Tom Holt began as a legitimate cowboy, moved to scouting and bounty hunting, and later became a hired killer for cattle barons targeting suspected rustlers. His past shows how easily these skills could veer into darker territory when legal work slowed. For many, a badge offered a steadier version of cowboy life. Town marshals in frontier towns like Dodge City or Tombstone earned $100 to $150 monthly, with more regular hours than ranch work. Ex-cowboys were especially valued as lawmen because they understood the pulse of cattle towns. When Wyatt Ellison served as deputy marshal in Dodge City, his knowledge of trail hands fresh off drives helped him keep order without excessive violence. The overlap of cowboying and law enforcement extended beyond individuals to entire communities. The famous vigilante movement in 1860s Montana Territory was largely driven by ranch owners and cowboys fed up with rampant horse theft and cattle rustling. When formal law arrived, many of these men became deputies and sheriffs. This pattern repeated across the frontier. The skills that made great cowboys often made capable peace officers. Court testimony also became a revenue stream. Cowboys who witnessed crimes could earn witness fees of $1 to $3 daily, plus travel costs when cases went to trial, decent extra income during winter when ranch work slowed. Some cowboys became known as dependable witnesses, repeatedly called by territorial prosecutors, forming an informal network of cowboy informants who reported crimes while doing their regular work. For all the romance later tied to cowboys and lawmen, the economic truth was simple. When Joshua Winters traded his lasso for a deputy's badge in Colorado's San Luis Valley, he wasn't changing who he was just finding a better-paying year-round use for the same skills. As he reportedly told a friend in 1882, chasing men pays better than chasing cows, though both can get you killed if you're not careful. It was a practical choice made by hundreds of cowboys across the Old West, creating a fluid link between the iconic cowboy and lawman that Hollywood later treated as distinct archetypes.